A customer enters a car showroom in Munich. 3 electric vehicles sit on display. The German model costs 52,000 euros. The American option is priced at 48,000. The Chinese vehicle sells for 29,000 euros. All 3 offer 400 kilometers of range, advanced safety systems, and modern interiors. The customer buys the Chinese car. This scene repeats across Europe, Asia, and Latin America every day. In 2023, China sold 6.2 million electric vehicles globally. This represents 63% of worldwide EV sales. Chinese manufacturers now export to over 70 countries. However, 15 years ago, China produced almost no electric vehicles. The transformation reveals a calculated economic strategy that Western nations failed to anticipate. China faced a fundamental problem in 2001. Japanese and German automakers dominated internal combustion engines. They held thousands of patents built over a century of development. Ford, Toyota, and Volkswagen operated sophisticated supply chains that Chinese companies could not replicate quickly. Competing directly meant permanent second-place status. Chinese officials chose a different approach. They designated electric vehicles as a strategic national priority. The government invested $200 billion between 2009 and 2023 in subsidies, research funding, and infrastructure development. Cities installed 5 million public charging points before most Western nations built their first 1,000. Provincial governments offered tax breaks to manufacturers who built battery factories and assembly plants. This early commitment created a critical advantage. While Western automakers debated whether electric vehicles represented a viable market, Chinese companies built the industrial capacity to dominate that market. The patience required for this strategy proved essential. Results took 15 years to materialize. However, once established, the advantages became extremely difficult for competitors to overcome. Electric vehicles require large lithium-ion batteries. These batteries need lithium, cobalt, nickel, graphite, and manganese. China controls minimal reserves of these raw materials. Australia holds the most lithium. The Democratic Republic of Congo produces 70% of global cobalt. Indonesia dominates nickel production. However, raw materials alone do not create batteries. The materials require processing into chemical compounds suitable for battery production. China refines 77% of global lithium. Chinese companies process 68% of nickel and 90% of rare earth elements. They manufacture 80% of all lithium-ion battery cells worldwide. This control emerged through systematic investment. Chinese state-owned enterprises and private companies acquired stakes in mines across Africa, South America, and Australia. They built processing facilities in Chinese industrial zones where environmental regulations allowed faster development. Companies like CATL and BYD invested heavily in battery chemistry research. They improved energy density from 150 watt-hours per kilogram in 2010 to over 300 watt-hours per kilogram by 2024. Meanwhile, they reduced production costs by 70% through automation and scale. Western nations relied on importing finished batteries or cells. This dependency created a structural cost disadvantage. A European automaker pays 30% more for the same battery capacity than a Chinese competitor. This price gap translates directly into vehicle pricing. Therefore, Chinese electric vehicles enter markets with immediate competitive advantages that product design alone cannot overcome. BYD produced 3 million electric vehicles in 2023. Tesla manufactured 1.8 million globally. Volkswagen built 771,000 electric cars. General Motors produced just over 76,000. This scale difference creates powerful economic forces. Fixed costs for factories, robotics, and tooling spread across larger production volumes. A factory producing 10,000 vehicles per year carries much higher per unit overhead than a facility making 500,000 units. Component suppliers offer volume discounts. A company ordering 1 million battery packs negotiates prices 20 to 30% below a competitor ordering 100,000 units. Chinese manufacturers reinvest these savings into further cost reductions or additional features. BYD introduced blade battery technology that improves safety and reduces costs. NIO developed battery swap stations that eliminate charging wait times. XPeng invested in autonomous driving systems that compete with Tesla. These innovations emerged because scale provided the capital for continued research and development. Traditional automakers face a difficult transition. They must maintain profitable combustion engine divisions while building electric vehicle capacity. Profitability requires scale. However, achieving scale requires years of losses while building market share. Many Western automakers lose money on every electric vehicle sold. Chinese manufacturers already operate at profitable scale. This gap widens as Chinese companies expand production while competitors struggle to reach break-even volumes. Over 100 Chinese companies manufacture electric vehicles. This intense domestic competition eliminates weak players and strengthens survivors. BYD, XPeng, Li Auto, Geely, Chery, and GAC compete for the same customers. A company that falls behind in battery range, software features, or pricing loses market share within months. This competitive pressure drives continuous improvement. Chinese electric vehicles receive over-the-air software updates that add features and improve performance. Battery warranties extend to 8 years or 200,000 kilometers. Interior quality improved dramatically between 2018 and 2024. Early Chinese electric vehicles featured cheap plastics and basic interfaces. Current models offer leather interiors, panoramic glass roofs, and advanced voice control systems. The domestic market serves as a proving ground for global expansion. Companies that succeed in China develop products refined through intense competition. They understand customer expectations. They operate efficiently. They price aggressively. When these companies enter European or Asian markets, they bring battle-tested products and operational experience. Western automakers face gentler domestic competition. This difference in competitive intensity shows in product quality and market positioning. Shenzhen hosts over 1,500 companies involved in electric vehicle production. These include battery manufacturers, motor producers, semiconductor suppliers, software developers, charging equipment makers, and specialized component suppliers. This concentration creates network effects that benefit all participants. An automaker in Shenzhen can source batteries from a supplier 40 kilometers away. If that supplier cannot meet specifications, 3 alternatives exist within 100 kilometers. Component lead times measure in weeks rather than months. Engineers from different companies collaborate because proximity enables frequent in-person meetings. Universities in the region graduate thousands of electrical engineers and software developers annually. This ecosystem took 2 decades to develop. Government industrial policy encouraged clustering through tax incentives and infrastructure investment. Companies located near suppliers to reduce logistics costs. Skilled workers migrated to regions with employment opportunities. The result is an integrated system where innovation spreads quickly and costs remain low. Western nations now attempt to build similar ecosystems. United States designated battery production zones. The European Union allocated funding for gigafactories. However, ecosystems require time to mature. Supply chains need development. Workers need training. Companies need years to refine processes. Meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers continue improving their existing advantages. A BYD Seal costs €35,000 in Europe. It offers 500 kilometers of range, 0 to 100 acceleration in 3.8 seconds, and advanced driver assistance. A comparable BMW i4 costs around €58,000. A Tesla Model 3 sells for around €46,000. The BYD provides similar performance at almost 40% lower cost. This value proposition appeals to practical buyers. Brand loyalty matters less when price differences reach €20,000. Consumer surveys in Europe show that 38% of buyers consider Chinese brands if the price advantage exceeds 30%. At 40% savings, this number rises to 57%. Western automakers built reputations on engineering, heritage, and brand prestige. However, electric vehicles reduce the importance of traditional automotive expertise. Electric motors contain far fewer parts than combustion engines. Battery chemistry and software integration determine vehicle performance more than mechanical engineering prowess. Chinese companies excel in both areas. Therefore, established brand advantages matter less in electric vehicle markets than in traditional automotive sectors. Chinese manufacturers adopted a phased international expansion approach. They started with developing markets in Southeast Asia and South America, where price sensitivity runs high in brand. Loyalty to Western manufacturers remains lower. BYD became the best-selling electric vehicle in Thailand in 2023. Chinese brands captured 42% of electric vehicle sales in Brazil. Phase 2 targeted Europe. NIO opened showrooms in Norway, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden. MG, owned by Chinese company SAIC, became a top 10 brand in multiple European markets. These companies adapted products for European regulations. They established service networks. They hired local staff who understood regional preferences. The expansion follows patterns seen in consumer electronics and solar panels. Chinese companies enter with competitive prices. They build market share through reliable products. Over time, they improve brand perception and move into premium segments. The strategy works because the underlying cost advantages support sustained price competition while maintaining profitability. The United States imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles in 2024. The European Union launched anti-subsidy investigations. Both regions announced substantial funding for domestic battery production. However, these responses face structural challenges. Tariffs raise consumer prices without improving domestic competitiveness. American buyers pay more while American manufacturers still cannot match Chinese production costs. Building battery production requires access to processed materials. China controls most processing capacity. Establishing new refineries takes 5 to 7 years and requires mining partnerships that Chinese companies already secured. Western automakers face a strategic dilemma. They can partner with Chinese battery suppliers, accepting dependency on a competitor. They can invest billions building domestic supply chains while accepting years of losses. They can retreat to premium segments where brand loyalty provides protection. None of these options offer easy solutions. The advantages China built through 2 decades of strategic investment cannot be replicated quickly, regardless of funding levels. Chinese electric vehicle dominance will continue through 2030 at minimum. The structural advantages in supply chain control, production scale, and industrial ecosystems remain firmly established. Market share in developing nations will likely increase as Chinese manufacturers introduce lower-priced models targeting mass-market buyers. Western automakers may succeed in premium segments where performance and brand prestige justify higher prices. However, the volume market belongs to manufacturers who can produce reliable vehicles at the lowest cost. China holds that position decisively. This situation represents more than automotive industry competition. It demonstrates how long-term strategic planning, government industrial policy, and supply chain control create competitive advantages that persist for decades. Other nations must now accept reduced market share or commit to multi-decade investments with uncertain returns. The electric vehicle transition reshapes global industrial power. China recognized this opportunity 20 years ago and executed a patient strategy that now yields substantial economic returns. The decisions made by Western governments and companies in the next 5 years will determine whether they can compete effectively or whether Chinese dominance becomes permanent. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to FactoPiaX for more clear explanations about global trade, resources, and the forces shaping our world. Share this video to help others understand how the electric vehicle transition is changing the global economy. Keep watching FactoPiaX.